stim, even building an early Marauder out of his tech lab barracks, since there are going to be roaches on the field. And I like it a lot. This is one of those compositions that going for the tanks is also very good against. I'm one of those dudes who doesn't shut up about drilling claws when I'm casting TVZ.
Really? I hadn't noticed.
But if you're, if you're playing like a Roachling Bane or any style like this, siege tanks are amazing.
Yeah, siege tanks versus Roach. I remember there used to be like there was like that phase where Zerg players were like, I will attack with roaches on 3 bases. And there was just that magic number where it's like, if you have 2 siege tanks, you defend against an unlimited number of roaches behind a wall.
Yep.
So yeah, they handled them pretty well.
The roach-tank relationship has been fun, too. I remember back in the dark days of StarCraft 2, when we had to research siege mode, those were...
Tanks also did a lot less damage back then.
Yeah, they did shoot faster, but yeah, and they had less health, too. But like, that was, that was a period of time where Zergs would just 1.5 base, or like 2 base, Roach Bane all in, versus a Terran who had 2 tanks, and siege mode was like almost right about to finish, but just barely didn't, and then they just die.
Yeah, those definitely were the dark days for siege tanks.
Those were bad days.
All right, Zergling speed, or sorry, Baneling speed is now finished up there. So Reynor's definitely going to need to utilize that, since I would say the crease rate has really been pushed back a lot by MarineLord. Not only by the Banshees, but even some Marines coming forward ever so often. They're in the slow zones, but it looks like the Baneling's also getting slowed, helping out MarineLord. He has a reaction time to pick
Banshee,
up.
I mean, it's tiny moves like that. Like if he could get the Banshee to focus on the Banes, then he could maybe grab like.
Banshee's on 14 kills, by the way. Oh no!
Finally about to die too. Rip.
Its final kill was itself.
And the siege tanks come through. There's a lot of tanks. Fighting in the slow zone in this situation is really nice for Terran.
Oh my god, you siege up in the slow zone.
Well, what's slower than immobile, Fear Dragon?
Moving backwards?
No, that requires the movement, so.
Yeah. Well, looks like with the rocks knocked down, or no, sorry, the rocks are over there.
This run by the way, is killing him.
This is what Reynor does, and he gets into the third base too.
He moved all of his SCVs from the natural to the third, so most of them are not actually mining. All the siege tanks are repositioning back home, so they're not defending. And Reynor's just going to kill him with Ravager Lings. And oh, look at that, 3 tanks on 1 hex. Yeet. They're all dead.
I cannot believe, actually just like in a moment's time, that run by, you were saying it, that actually is what just won him the game right there. GG. Yep. Nicely done, Reynor.
Playing any style where you move out and attack versus Cyril or Reynor, like, think about it. Think about it. Just even if you're like, yes, bio is 100% the only way to play this game. If your opponent can do that to you, I'm just saying, like that's what these players hinge on. It's one of the most important skills to have. By the way, it's not like it's a gimmick or anything. Like counterattacking is something that you obviously always want to do in an RTS, but for Zerg, it is just so impactful because of their ability to do it quickly with the Zerglings and have a very cheap investment that does a lot. Whereas, like, a medevac with 8 Marines in it is not that easy to replace, and it really heavily affects your actual army when you're playing bio. But for the Zerg, assuming that you have, like, Banelings and Queens and Ravagers at home trying to, like, slow down a push, those 30 or 40 Lings are really not that much of an investment to just risk tossing towards your opponent, since it's very easy for them to get out. And if that wall is down, then, well, we get to see what happened in that last game. The Zerglings kill everything, and even the little slowdown that they got before, like those Hellions that ran by, would have been a lot cooler if he hadn't had the armory given up and also lost like 4 or 5 SCVs in the natural. Yeah, so I think that there were a lot of things that we've seen in the past, people talking about how to play versus Reynor. Some people speculate like, oh, mech is really good versus Reynor because you get the Hellbats that help deal with those run-bys and everything. We might talk about that in a little bit and see whether or not MarineLord is even thinking about maybe going for mech as opposed to in the past. But before that, it does seem like we do need to go to a short little break before we get the next game started. Having a little bit of PC issues, but we'll see you guys in a little bit. Please don't go anywhere. You are watching WCS Challenger, the European playoffs.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for sticking around during the break. We're going to be moving into game number 2 in just a moment's time of Reynor versus MarineLord. Currently, we have Reynor sitting up 1-0, showcasing why he is known for his Ling run-bys and everything with that first game. And our next map is going to be Acropolis.
Nice.
So I was starting to talk a little bit about this, but in the past, we've seen people used to think and say, oh, versus Reynor, like maybe mech would be better against him because it is sort of a lot of the time, not necessarily the battle mech, but like the traditional mech, that more pulled back style. Maybe you get up some of those Hellbats to help deal with run-bys and everything. How do you feel things with that kind of, I guess, early prediction of how to deal with Reynor panned out? Is there anything you want to see from MarineLord to help deal with those run-bys?
Something weird. Something weird. I don't think bio's bad. I just think the problem becomes, this actually goes a little bit back to that whole discussion around like the siege tanks as well. As tanks are nice, but if you're gonna move them out of your base, you need something to defend, right? And that's when Widow Mines become really useful. Even though we didn't talk about them, like for Roach Ravager, mines are just not as good, but it's Reynor. So there's going to be a lot of Zerglings. Even if Reynor's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna play Roach Hydra, it's like, no, he'll still have links. Like, you know, that's just the way that it goes. So check below your third.
I'm proxy raxing you, surely. Yeah. Well, we're not pro league, so yeah, all that chat is not banned. Nice.
Look at that. Look at that. I was gonna say, I was saving my free speech jokes for WCS America, but MarineLord is ruining everything.
Worth noting that the last time these guys played, that I keep bringing up, since it was just last Challenger Season 1, but in that series, one of the games that MarineLord took was just a nice, quick old proxy racks. And Zombie Grub was also talking about before, people have speculated that that is maybe one of the big weaknesses for Reynor, is handling a lot of those proxy racks, since he has lost a lot of games to them, I would say.
The real question is, if MarineLord gets a game on like New Repugnancy, or we already played on Tom Cruise, but will we see the elusive 3 base 14 racks Reaper?
14 racks Reaper. I believe you had a 4th coming up, Nate, so I think you're underselling this. And 2-2 on the way, yeah.
That's true. He did get double upgrades. Well, he played it like he was playing bio.
Let me ask you something, Nate. If you are going to go past 8 barracks racks Reaper, when is the appropriate time to start mixing in medevacs to heal your Reapers?
Why build medevacs when you could spend the money on more Reapers?
That's true.
The Reapers heal themselves, Fear Dragon.
The build is probably more refined, since many people have done those in mono battles. So
I don't make comments about builds that are efficient anymore, because last week we had, what's his face? Was it Future who made it through that final map where he just like parade pushed with a bunch of unupgraded Marines?
Oh yeah.
Against 2/2
no. That was Vindicta?
Yeah, it was Vindicta. Yeah. And then
Oh,
I was like, wow.
This is
7
amazing.
racks, 2.5 base. I'm like, he really squeezed every valuable resource he could out. And then after the game, Roddy's like, yeah, mate, he told me he just forgot his engineering base. I'm like, God damn it. Why do I give players credit for anything? Every good thing they do is usually a mistake. That's all you guys need to know.
All right, well, the Reaper accidentally kills one of the Zerglings once again.
Yeah,
the third
he didn't mean to do that.
Yeah.
He was just trying to scout, and the Zergling just died, and he was like, I don't know how the body got there.
Yeah, pretty quick third, though, coming up for MarineLord. So he is going to be thinking about getting to the later stages of the game once again. We'll see if he decides to stick around in that bio, as the first couple of Hellions are going to be on their way out. And then we'll eventually find out what kind of additional tech he decides to go for. But with the tech lab going up, I believe pretty close to the starport, good chance he might be just doing the swap around and getting up another Banshee.
Yeah, we'd like to see him just go for like a Viking into a Fusion Core or a Raven instead. I think the Banshee's a cool unit. I don't feel like it has as much utility as some of the other units. Like, was it MarineLord in his group, actually, that was going ham with the Liberator? or that might have been Future. We actually have so many Terrans playing WCS America that I'm having a hard time remembering who's doing what anymore. But there was some really good.
We've never experienced before.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not used to it. Like, usually there's only one Terran and they lose immediately, but we've somehow gotten a few that have slipped towards the end. But there was some really good Liberator usage, and I'm just not crazy about the Banshee these days. I feel like a lot of other units fill that role a lot better.
Yeah, I kind of get. I think it's also part of it to me is that it's the same sort of story of most harassment forums in StarCraft, where eventually people just kind of get used to defending it. They get better and better at defending against it.
Yeah, and I think the problem there just lies in that, like, a Banshee is just usually not as good as a Liberator, right? Or a Raven in terms of just being added to a normal army as a follow-up.
That, yes.
Like, they don't, like, a Banshee doesn't work the same way that, say, like, an Oracle would, where you do harass and then you use it for, like, stasis traps or Revelation, right? It's like, what does the Banshee do? It's like, well, you either get Hyperflight Rotors or they don't do anything past the start of the game.
Ooh, double armory. All right, so that answers the whole bio versus mech question.
This makes me like the Banshee more, by the way, because it will help.
Did he just ambush the Hellions with the he put the Banelings behind the smoke and ambushed them and got them.
Nice.
That was nice. Sorry, you were saying.
No, yeah, it's all good. But yeah, it makes me like the Banshee play a little bit more if you can keep him alive, because then defensively the Banshees become much more important when you're playing any sort of mech style. And they do synergize, but you need to get Hyperflight Rotors if you want to, like, seriously use them. But just having, like, one or two to help you take your third base, for example, is really nice. MarineLord's already got that third base planted down. He's already mining the gas off of it, which I really, really, really like. Being very forward with his expanding.
And repairing. Oh, my God, Nate. He is just checking all the boxes for you, I think, right now.
Oh, my God, a Terran player repairing their units on WCS.
Drilling Claw? All right.
My heart be still.
Yeah.
No, you don't need drilling claws with mech.
No,
I will say my only problem with this right now, and I'm ready for this to happen, is I'm like, where's Blue Flame? Magfield Accelerator is a fun upgrade, but what does Reynor even have right now that he would need that anti-armor damage against?
There's
Zerglings? No. Banelings? No. Hydras? No. Queens? No. None of those units are armored. So we've actually seen, the last time I made this comment, I felt a little bit mean for going straight into the Blue Flame argument. But the last time I made that comment, I'm pretty sure the Terran player's Cyclone Hellion just died to a Lynx around with no Blue Flame. And that's basically my only concern.
There's Blue Flame for you, Nate.
Blue Flame is very important. It's very, very important.
All right.
Especially since he's got +1 coming in at a really good time. His armor is really early. So once he gets that, Blue Flame and +1 attack, guaranteed 2-shot on Lynx for the rest of the game. Most important set of upgrades for playing mech versus Zerg, in my opinion.
Yeah, and even that armor upgrade is going to help out a lot versus those slings that
yes.
do small little bits of damage repeatedly. But
my question going into this, so it's Hydraling Bane, which is really good against Cyclone Hellion if you have creep spread. Like, you can't really attack into this army on the creep unless the Zerg really fumbles their control and lets a couple Hellion waves clear out all the lings. But my question then becomes, does MarineLord have a transition that he likes to do out of this? Because I think there's a lot of good options for mech. Oh, wow. Actually, catching these Hellions is huge. This is a big, big win for Reynor. So he's really just spreading that creep. So for Reynor, he just needs to get to Hive.
I love how evenly
Viper shut it all down.
Yeah, I love it.
We just had, wow, yeah, that graphic on the right side.
Yeah,
good God.
Both players, their 1-1 upgrades finishing the exact same.
Have that many upgrades ever finished on screen with that graphic in a broadcasted StarCraft match before?
That's a really good question, because I would love to know. I don't know.
Set a new record?
We could actually have like a point where Ryan Shooter had not planned for more than like 8 upgrades to ever finish at the same time, and maybe it does actually just go off the screen.
It scrolled down as more of them popped up and finished.
Yeah.
So they did think of it.
All right, so Hive, Hive Tech is now going up because Reynor did get up a pretty quick infestation pit, and Hive Tech is pretty important.
Wow. Okay, this is really interesting. MarineLord is adding 3 more factories, so he's at 8 factories right now, with his starport doing nothing. So a lot of players try to go into like Liberators behind this. We see Liberator Range or Hyperflight Rotor Banshees, but he is just going with the mindset that he is going to just drown Reynor in Cyclone Hellion, which I do find scary. Okay, he's still going to build Liberators behind it with the starport that he has, but surprised to not see a second starport and like a fusion core, because ranged Liberators they synergize well with everything. It's one of the best, most powerful units in StarCraft is a Liberator with that advanced ballistics. But the problem is Reynor's creep spread has been really good, so MarineLord can't attack. And yeah, while he's not taking damage from any run-bys or anything, this is also not this isn't your dad's mech, where I just built up 200 supply and then the Zerg couldn't kill me anymore. It's like, no, this is Cyclone Hellion mech, which is the hip, younger, faster mech that dies in one punch, if you can land the punch.
Yeah, and speaking of like that punch, he hasn't, like you said, because of the creep spread, ever gotten really onto Reynor's side of the map, and Reynor pushing him back once again. Baneling's coming in from the left-hand side, getting some okay connections on some of these Cyclones. The Hellion reinforcements do come forward, and a lot of these Banelings are starting to go down as they are getting kited back further and further. But the trick here is that MarineLord is once again back on his side of the map, and Reynor has a lot of space.
He did deal with that somewhat reasonably, but like I said, where do you go with this army? The answer, nowhere. This army doesn't really go anywhere until all the creep is gone. So it's just a dance over the creep tumors. If you move too far out on a creep and they do get that surround, you die. The Liberators is what I really like to see, though. This is the ace play. He's got the Lib on that bottom side of the base. Tons of drones are going down. More importantly, he's pulling the Zerg apart. And this actually gives him time to push that creep spread back and take another expansion. I want to know what his transition... There we go. Fusion core, 2 more starports. Liberators are really big here. And honestly, I talk about this way too much, but I would love to see... So he's the 3rd starport. Maybe he's going to transition into
battle
BC.
cruisers? Yeah.
Could be battle cruisers. He doesn't have the upgrades to do it, though.
He is getting
BCs would suffer really badly from the lack of any... Okay,
cancels the weapon upgrade and goes for ship weapons, yeah.
Okay. Could be BCs, but I think you want to wait on that. So you have
is the armor upgrade more important than the weapon upgrade?
Only in TvT, in my opinion.
Okay.
The attack upgrade for the battlecruiser is way more important because
it attacks so quickly.
In TvT, it's more about Yamatoing, and like Marines are really bad against them, but the burst damage between everything else is usually going to get it done. Some of the abducts come in, but you see without the creep spread here, MarineLord can start to dance, so that's really big. Him focusing down those creep tumors and the Liberators pulling the queens and whatnot around. As Reynor looks like he wants to set up a sick flank. Good quick reaction here. Having that tower helps a lot.
Liberator also heading into the natural. At the same time that these units here in the center are starting to get picked off. More Viper abducts.
That army, by the way, it is so weak.
Yeah.
Love this Liberator here. Love it. I love it a lot.
Doing quite a bit for sure. And I think that the starports are all finished up. I don't believe he started up. He started up a couple of tech labs. Yeah, he has 3 tech labs on these starports, so he should be good for 3 battle cruisers being made at a time, but still just focusing on Liberators right now.
Yeah, I think that's the good thing to do. He could go into BCs. I don't think he will unless he gets a ridiculous bank. But this army needs to transition into either Thors or battle cruisers. He's not... I do not think he can win this game off of just Cyclone Hellion. The Liberator harass might be able to cripple Reynor's economy, but Hydra Viper Baneling it just beats this army. This army is just not good versus Hydroling Bane.
This is a good snag for Reynor, being able to get that planetary fortress for the most part, besides some of the Banelings used for free. Finally, some of the Cyclones locking on, making this a little bit more difficult. One Viking actually.
A landed Viking with +1 attack versus a Queen with +2 armor and +1 attack.
Not bad. Not bad.
Well, it was bad, but he doesn't have Viking, so there's that.
3 more command centers being added on. This is that point where MarineLord just gets into a crazy, crazy number of orbitals.
Advanced ballistics. Advanced ballistic almost done too. But yeah, he's got a good amount of command centers coming in. Good to point that out, Fear Dragon, because I think one of the things he's going to want to do is
stack SCVs.
Yep, so he can get a bigger army.
And that's going to make that transition point a little bit easier as well if he does start building up that bank and get into BCs. Reynor's the one that's been building up the bank, though, and he has been, for the most part, pushing back a lot of this Liberator harassment. He keeps taking some worker losses, but staying at a healthy count for the most part, usually.
Yeah, I like this a lot. I mean, the Liberator harass is the most important thing, because if the Zerg player is able to just build up, like... Honestly, surprised Reynor has so few Vipers, because this army is dancing around way more than it should, but really just a few good Baneling hits will do it too.
Yeah.
Liberators are finally getting some use.
The Hydras are going to be able to get on top of that planetary fortress for a little bit as the Baneling shoots everything away. Oh, God. Get some decent connections at the very end there. It doesn't look like Reynor feels comfortable continuing to push in to try and take out the planetary.
He's adding 5 Vipers. I was going to say, just 2 Vipers. I was a little bit curious.
I think he had more, but he lost a lot of them in those fights. No, actually, he only ever lost 2 Vipers. It was just during that fight that he lost 2 Vipers.
Repairing his units. Oh, my God. Be still, my beating heart.
All right, at this point, this does get kind of tricky, though, right? Because MarineLord did lose a lot of supply there, army supply. So he doesn't really have that bank that he can use to try and transition. His Liberator count is getting much higher, though. So is that going to be enough for him to help deal with the next point of transition for Reynor, which is the Greater Spire?
That's interesting. Really depends on the control here. He's building Vikings. That makes me nervous. So, I think if he builds too many Vikings, then he's going to have a really hard time dealing with it. But
yeah,
if he sticks to the Liberator, Hellion, Cyclone, and just like good control and gets lock-ons onto the to the Corruptors, then there's big opportunity there. Because the funny thing is, if you can just keep the ground clean with the Liberators and the Hellions, the Cyclones will get the job done if you have enough of them. And that also comes back to, like I was saying earlier, I would really like to see him go into Thors. BCs or battlecruisers are actually great versus Broodlords as well, because it's kind of like, you know, there's the inverse relationship of Corruptors to Broodlords.
So
he's got plenty of Liberators here to deal with the Hydralisk part of this.
Yeah.
Move the SCVs away, lift off the command center if you need to. Yeah, he's fine.
I'm actually amazed. I don't even know if a single Liberator died there.
As soon as I saw that many Liberators pre-sieged, I was like, meh, I don't know if I need to get hyped for this. Like that, Liberators are really good.
You know better than me on this one, but we do see the army moving along the south side of the map, encroaching in on what would have potentially been another base, but Reynor did expand on the north side instead, so he's still got some creeps right to work with, as a Hellion run by is going to be the most that will really happen here.
I'm upset that he never got transformation servos, because I think that would be a little bit useful here. Broodlords are now finally on the way. He's got so many factories. Just build like 6 Thors. Do it. They're so good. They're good against everything in this army.
Well, the Liberators for now are going to be holding down the fort.
With this many Liberators, he can do it with the Cyclones. He's got so much coverage.
Let's transfuse it.
As much overkill as it is, as much overkill as it might be, like if he can just run up and get the initial poke with the Cyclones, like the Broodlords will melt. The key to dealing with the Cyclones now that there's so many Broodlords is actually the Banelings, where you're saying if you want to get close enough to the Broodlords to attack them, then you're going to have to get into range of those Banelings. But this army for MarineLord just looks gnarly. He did a really good job with this, and it comes back to, as I was saying earlier, it's all about what you do after you go for the battle mech. Like Cyclone Hellion doesn't really end games on its own, but these run-bys from Reynor bringing back some of the trademark backstab in action. Needed to get himself set up to defend. Leave 1 or 2 of these libs here. Be a good play in my opinion.
Yeah. Reynor also, I just want to note, never actually going for a +3 melee upgrade.
Reynor's broke. He's getting these Broodlords, but he has no real money behind this. And
which is surprising because he has a lot of drones and he actually has like a lot of his base is not really saturated.
Yeah, I like this setup here a lot for MarineLord. My only fear is if he takes 1 bad engagement, these 22 Cyclones, you're like, wow, 22 Cyclones. 10 Broodlords will destroy this with the Baneling support really, really easily if he takes this fight poorly. And then he'll probably just die because Cyclones are ridiculously expensive and he's not going to be able to replace all of them. But really good abducts.
Yeah. Going to catch a lot of those Cyclones, pulling them forward.
And that was another part of my fear here is he's building a lot of Vikings, which oftentimes are just dead supply.
Yeah, it does a good job of splitting off the parasitic bombed Viking away pretty quickly. And I think he has 1 or 2 SCVs in this army, just slowly doing a repair job. This SCV is working some overtime here.
One of the big things about
BCs.
Thank you. Okay, yes, I was waiting for this. Thors or BCs are your ultimate like coup de grace units for the endgame TVZ. So battle cruisers will give him something like an actually fight against these big armies, will be big enough to tank a lot of those hits. And then the Cyclone usage, the Cyclone's value becomes less about killing units and more about supporting the BCs. Cyclones, next to Archons, are like the best unit in this game at killing Corruptors.
Yeah, some Liberator harassment on the top center base there for Reynor is going to deny a little bit more mining. And that's actually also going to buy MarineLord some space because there's a Cyclone on the far bottom left-hand side. Just trying to pull Reynor apart a little bit.
This is awesome because the thing, so this is what I'm talking about, inverse relationship. You can only get so many Broodlords or Corruptors. And if you want to have Broodlords, that's fine.
Oh my god.
He's going to need to rebuild those Corruptors. This Liberator harass still
this
so
is hilarious.
gnarly, so sick.
What a pair.
But if he gets, to have enough Broodlords to deal with the ground and enough Corruptors to deal with the air, counterattacks and backstabs with Hellion Cyclone become even more brutal because he suddenly doesn't have supply. He doesn't have supply for it. Look, there's no Lings on the map. He has no Zerglings. He does not have any mobile supply that he can just throw around. He needs the Corruptors to deal with the Vikings and the battle cruisers. He needs the Vipers there too, and he needs the Broodlords to make sure that Cyclones don't just kill everything else.
All right, Liberators are starting to siege up. They're actually going to be hitting a couple of these Hydras immediately, but the Vipers are able to pull them out of their liberation zones. Vikings immediately getting parasitic bombed, and there's no split happening there.
Keep the Cyclones alive. Pull the Cyclones back. Target fire the Planetary onto the Banelings. There we go. One hit.
Okay, most of the Cyclones survive. And now that means with that Planetary Fortress holding the line, Cyclones locking onto one of the Broodlords, but the Broodlings are really messing with the path.
Finally starts to build Thors. Might be a little bit too late. If he could kill enough of those Corruptors, then the battle cruisers could mop up. But he's just going to go for the counterattack with the BCs. I will say thank you, MarineLord. He did not teleport the BCs in. He just move commanded them. This is really important because he can actually get out now. So these BCs are not guaranteed to die.
He's going to kill the Hydra Den. So he's losing a lot over here, but he actually just killed the Hydra Den. So if he can also find the Spire, that's basically all of the anti-air there. But
yeah, but the Corruptors are here. He's going to Yamato and tactical jump out, which is the right call. Did he tactical jump onto the Broodlords? Yes, he did.
Yes.
Unfortunately, 4 Corruptors were left behind, so these battle cruisers cannot do anything. GG. Reynor takes the second game, and that was really fun to see. I think really the biggest takeaway for me watching that game, if you play Battle Mech on the ladder or in a lot of pro games that we watch, very similar things happens in this situation if you don't transition out of it. Cyclone Hellion is great, it's fun, it's fast, it's mobile. It's more like Bio and less turtley. Sure, whatever reason you want to play it, that's fine. But at some point, you need to move to some thick, chomky boys, and those are either battle cruisers or they're Thors. Now, the Thors are going to be great for zoning away the Broodlords, so you can still use Cyclone Hellion with them even though they're slow. And if you get enough Thors, then with the Liberator support, they can kill anything. The Zerg has to get really defensive at that point because attacking into that sort of setup is really hard, especially with the ranged Liberators. But in that particular situation, just too much of the supply at the end there was Cyclone Hellion because he defends, he's like trying to hold on to that base. He kills everything on the ground, but the Cyclones on their own cannot beat the Broodlords. They cannot get close enough to attack. And like I said, Vikings are basically dead supply versus any sort of Viper Corruptor setup. They just have too low health. They just die really fast and they don't attack quickly. So once those are gone, the Corruptors can go Caustic Spray all your other expansions down. They got that bottom left base. They can pretty much, they could go home and defend against the battlecruiser counterattack, I guess, too. Do
you think you need more battlecruisers in this situation? Because he got up to 3, and then he went back to Viking production, which I know you were not a huge fan of the Viking in general. But
oh, I'm very proud to die on my sword that I don't like Vikings. It's not a secret. I don't.
But do you think it's better to get more of the battlecruisers in that situation then, or do you just double down more?
Personally, like if I like think like what's actually the best. A couple of BCs to harass are not a bad idea earlier. That's why you get them. That's why rushing them was so effective because of the survivability of them. But I think with that many starports, when you have Liberator range and you've got 3/3, and you see the Broodlords, get a big ball of Thors. Like there weren't even any infestors. Like what were you gonna do? Like Thors really like dump all over Broodlings, like Broodlords. Like they are so good. And I'm a Thor
any
salesman.
air units yet.
I'm a Thor salesman. My affiliate link is on this website, StarCraft2.com. Check it out.
Oh, man. All right, well, this is still, regardless, a really tough spot now for MarineLord, who I know...
And he's going back to his old self.
Well, I mean, it worked. It worked last time they faced off against each other, as I kept saying.
Yeah, it's just the one proxy barracks, actually.
Okay.
He's going to SCV scout with it. Oh, nope, never mind. The other one's coming in behind it.
So, we'll see how this works out. I was going to say, you, me, Zombie Grub, Awesome Sauce are all talking in the green room before the show started and kind of saying, like, you know, of the people, I think MarineLord actually is one of the people who does have a decent shot and maybe taking out Reynor. I like that. He mines out both of those mineral patches like that.
I was pretty disappointed with the game 1. I really liked everything MarineLord did in game 2.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of great things to say about Banshee openers personally, because I don't really ever see the Terran come out of those openings ahead. Sometimes they're good on defense, as we wait for the Overlord to maybe or maybe not see these proxy racks. But really just, I think if he transitions out of the Cyclones into something like, and you get a couple tanks staggered back really far for some of those earlier Hydra pushes so that you can move out on the map is one thing. But if you're going to go BCs, try to get there a little bit faster. If you're going to go 8 factory, get Thors, man. Thors are really underrated. And you don't need to build an insane critical mass of them. Oh. They're just really good versus Broodlords.
I feel so silly right now, Nate. I did not notice that Reynor went for a pull first.
Yeah. He Overlord scouted the 3rd base and towards the mineral patches first, too.
Yeah.
It may not be too big of a deal because it's 3 barracks Marines. So with the SCV support, he can get something done. But the most important thing for your Dragon with that, as you're pointing out, is it's a little bit tougher for him to get the bunkers set up.
Yeah.
But Raynor's going to go straight into a Roach Warren. Oh, Cyril has already wrote the book on dealing with these types of builds. So I expect to see him he'll let the natural finish, probably. Yeah, and he'll just say, okay, waste your time killing that. I'm going to get Ravagers, bile you down, counterattack, and kill you.
MarineLord, you got to finish that wall at the front. Okay, there it is. SCB does get started on that.
Now he has to.
I think the
depot only just started. There's enough wings to hit 3.
And you can't repair a depot that is still building, so these wings will get in.
You cannot repair building structures. These SCVs will win a fight against the Lings, but he'll
take some losses. It delays Marines, bunkers.
And actually, he's just going to go for the other depots, which is really smart, because now he just can't build Marines.
He's already supply blocked now.
He's already blocked. Killing this depot, he has 1 in production. That's not going to be enough. He starts another one. Still not enough. And then you ask the question, well, hey, he's sending Marines home.
Oh, this is
You're going to have to rallying. You proxy 3 racks, and now you're rallying back to your own main.
Yeah, this is a really, really good value usage of 4 Zerglings from Reynor. Of course, he does still lose his natural, but the Ravagers are starting to morph in, so he can start picking away at those bunkers from a safe distance. Some repair, I'm sure, will come out to keep those bunkers alive just to buy time.
So now it's all about MarineLord transitioning out of this as fast as humanly possible before some big swell of Ravagers breaks everything down and comes and kills him.
His first gas is only just now finishing, though, so it's going to be a bit before he can start up the factory.
I'd like to see him start like 2 bunkers on top of the ramp outside of his natural after he starts the command center. Like, just play really defensively here, because the Zerg is highly motivated to try and get as much value out of these defensive units that they were forced to build as possible.
He's still just investing into more Marines, and don't forget, he's also investing resources into this repair. So it seems like it's going to be harder.
This might do it. This might work. He's got a lot of Marines.
He does.
The only reason why I'm not writing home about MarineLord taking a map in this series right now is because I've seen Cyril play StarCraft, and Reynor has beaten Cyril. So they've both been in this position many times and won, which I find to be the most confusing thing. Because as much as we talk about economy, yes, the Zerg player had the natural denied, but MarineLord, he's going straight into his factory, and as you said, he's still been building out of those proxy barracks, so he's not really had a crazy... he hasn't expanded yet. It's still just 1 base versus 1 base.
Yes.
And very low-tech units out of the Terran, might I add.
Bunker finally gets taken care of, and those Ravagers do have a bit of a range advantage versus the Marines, but it requires some really, really fine micro to make that work. A couple of those SCVs being sent home. The extra command center is on the way there now for MarineLord. Reynor is up in supply, but it's inflated roach supply, so it's not super clear cut.
It's turning into Ravagers, which are...
True.
I wouldn't
It's only
say
3 roaches, that's right.
The Ravagers aren't as inflated, but they're less sturdy than the roaches. Ravagers do have armor by default, but they're missing those 25 extra hit points that the roaches have.
Ooh, okay. Good
This
use
high
of dribbling.
ground, this high ground vision's really nice.
Yeah.
Pushing up this ramp, I think, would be suicide. So Reynor takes his expansion again, and we'll just see what happens. A Cyclone is on the way for MarineLord. Interesting. Cancels it. Okay.
Oh, he's going to use the Lings to try and get some high ground vision and then bust on forward. The Ravagers doing quite a bit of damage to these Marines, but they are going down very quickly.
He steps forward into the Ravagers instead of retreating and eating free shots. Kills a lot of what's there, but, you know, he canceled that Cyclone, and he's just trying to get straight to a Banshee, I guess, because there's no anti-air here, but he's just saying, okay, come in, drop some Biles.
Forcing a lot of SCVs off of mining to repair is going to be some indirect damage that is getting done. Is there just an... Oh, the barracks landed over by a potential the third base. Okay.
Ravagers poke up, drop a bunch of Biles. He doesn't have enough to one-tap the bunker, so...
He needs 6 for one-tapping it? Oh, no, wait. That is 6 now. He just got an extra couple.
It's hard to time it all perfectly as well.
Yeah.
If you miss one frame and then the SCVs start to repair... Now it actually just gets the depot. This command center, what are you doing?
Maybe a little bit over-eager there.
Ambitious.
But the Banshee's about to pop out, so he should be able to establish that soon. But we end up seeing, ooh, Biles on the SCVs, and the bunker does go down. So he's going to be able to clean up some of the army. He will end up losing pretty much every
The Banshee means it's all going to die, but he's just trying to get as close to mutually assured destruction as he possibly can. Make the most of this. He killed a lot of SCVs.
Oh, there's no follow-up push anymore coming out from MarineLord. He just lost every single Marine there and a lot of SCVs.
Yep. So this is exactly what you want, right? We think about what happened. The natural for the Zerg was denied. This is quote-unquote bad for the Zerg. This barracks landed at the third is actually the best part of MarineLord's opening. At the end of the day, just being able to block this third for as much as possible is really nice, because as a Terran, you always want to be on even bases with the Zerg. Like, if you're a Terran on one base and you know the Zerg's on one base, that's good for you. If you delay the Zerg's third while you're taking your natural and it's 2 base versus 2 base, that's good for you. And if he starts a third command center at any point in the next minute, then the Zerg player only now just taking that third hatchery, well, it's good for you. So it's also possible he just wants to do a big 2 base attack to follow this up. I don't know how I feel about that because it is Thunderbird and it's a very difficult map to do that. But he already mined out the 2 middle patches in the middle, so he can. Oh yeah, there you go. Actually, I'm blind. He's already had a third command center forever. No, this is actually great.
Whoa, really? Oh yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't notice.
Okay, well done.
I was so focused on the attack. I was waiting to see a third CC start, but he had built it so early that I at no point noticed it on my minimap.
Okay, well, with that and also now Stim finishing up here, MarineLord, once he is actually able to get out more Marines to go for one of those pushes.
Plus, it's Thunderbird, so he can take that third whenever he wants.
Yeah.
Just wall off the big ramp is all you need to do.
Hold that high ground. I'm still waiting. I really, really want to see if by the end of this map pool you have more players that actually go and mine out your opponent's minerals on that other side, like there. Try and go for more run-bys and things. I especially feel like a player like Reynor would really benefit from it.
Yeah. It's just the, you know, I guess the whole thing with sending 2 workers across the map and they might die at any point.
No, very true. It's not a simple thing always, for sure.
There's when we had new map features, there's always like these discussions and debates. People are like, well, a gold gas was just be broken from Protoss, right? Because Protoss has so much gas units. But at the end of the day, if you do it right and you use map features in an intelligent way when you're building the maps, I haven't heard anybody complain about the gold gas on this map, right? The high yield Vespine.
It's so hard to get. I don't even hear people talk about it.
Yeah, but that's the thing is, it's so hard to get, but it doesn't need to be easy to get. Right? You can
awesome
have...
Sauce, do you know where that gold gas is? Ah, okay, cool. He knows. He knows.
Yeah. So the Banshees are going to come poke this base, but to me, that's also just just as important a part of it is that that option is there, but you don't need to force it.
Well, that's kind of nice. Denying gas guys are there.
If we ever see it, it'll probably be really cool because it's there, but it's not like a given thing.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Being there and being hard to get is what makes it such an interesting mechanic.
Antigua Shipyard is the map that comes to mind for me.
Where it's like, yeah, where a lot of the early maps, the gold base, like people got bored of gold minerals because every base was like, oh yeah, all the maps are like, we're just going to give you a gold base.
We're going to give
basically
gold
for free.
In the center of the map where the Terran players are already pushing anyways, so and you're covering and defending this by
where the Xel'Naga Watchtower is, yeah. So I love when map features are used in a way that doesn't really force it as much. Like, you don't have to mine these minerals out to attack your opponent, but it does help. Yeah.
All right, well, we got a double drop heading over to this third base. It is immediately going to get jumped on. MarineLord quickly backs out of that decision. Reynor sits down a little bit of supply. This is, he needs to get his defenses up. He's only got 5 Banelings right now, and Baneling speed is nearing completion, but not quite done yet.
Yeah, the lack of Baneling speed is going to hurt, but this is the make or break for the Terran, because with how many Zerglings are on the map and how many Banelings there are, not a lot, those siege tanks are really important. If they get cleaned up or they get killed here, the possibility for a huge counterattack is very real. Marines come up, get a few of the queens, Banshees are going to die. You need to pull back towards those siege tanks.
Okay, Reynor is finally moving all the Zerglings that he had in the main base over to the main fight to try and clean this up. At the same time, the drop goes back into the third base and is now going to go back to the main base where Reynor just evacuated his Lings to help out.
Yeah, this is going, I think, very well for MarineLord so far. The Zerglings and the Ravagers are going to come bum rush this now. Those Biles need to land on the tanks. That vision blocker, really huge. Does get 2 of the tanks. And the Marines are kind of low on hit points now, so having less siege tanks certainly makes it more difficult for this push to have its sustained damage.
MarineLord, wow. Making a lot happen with that drop, but no
drones. The thing is, the 4th base just hasn't really been a factor yet. Like, it's here, but there's only 4 drones. It is producing larvae, which is nice. Oh. But he's not getting as much value out of it as some of his other ones, and now he wants to do the Ling counterattack, and that's going to be this is going to be huge. Whether or not this gets in and does damage is a huge thing, but there's a lot of Marines left behind. He's not parade pushing, so he can't get anything there, and that's so nice. Has to lift up the Marines, but he's got the tank on the high ground to cover.
And those Lings that were going for the counterattack, now they are in a prime position to try and snipe off those siege tanks that are up on the high ground. Here come those Lings. They're going to be able to jump on them, and they're already almost gone. The Marines trying to unload on the high ground. Might be able to save one of the tanks. No, it goes down, and so do most of the Marines on the low ground. Reynor gives himself a bit more space and takes out a lot of the firepower from MarineLord's push.
Yeah, that's nice. And this is the downside of playing safe against an opponent who wants to do counterattacks. So yes, he's able to have his units at home to defend, but he has to push out in waves, a bit more like Wings of Liberty style rather than that Heart of the Swarm parade push that we were talking about. And because of that, even though he got rid of almost all the Banelings and he almost broke him, his army was still eventually cleaned up, and he lost his siege position because he wasn't rallying. And, you know, the downside to rallying is that counterattacks become really, really good.
Yeah, we do see what can only really be described as a massive doom drop heading across the map from MarineLord.
But back to your earlier comment, though, Fear Dragon, sending out 2 drones to open up that right side on the 3rd would be massive. It's just not something that I think players have mentally accustomed themselves to.
Yeah. All right, so the Doom Drop gets 2 workers worth of damage and a handful of Lings, but then ends up having to evacuate out. Well, this base actually is...
Yeah, if he can't unload... Yeah, if he can unload all of those medevacs...
Usually the Zerg player will mine out those mineral patches to establish that base. Surprised Reynor hasn't done that yet. I guess
he's just not used to it.
Yeah.
It's just not something that he's, like, trained his muscle memory for. He must not play this map a ton. Either that or he very specifically doesn't want to mine it for some reason that we just don't understand.
With such a Ling, like, run-by focused style, that actually doesn't surprise me at all, because...
Doing it aggressively, I can see how you don't send a drone to the other side of the map.
Yeah.
Maybe he's like, I wanted to wait till the hatch is done before I mined out the ones here, because he's lost games, right?
Yeah.
Mining them too early. And this is where we see the Liberator Harass come in. Again, the one in the natural tragically sieges by Spore Crawler, so that hurts. Biles are going to get the one by the 4th, so very well defended there so far by Reynor, but he has to get rid of these 3 medevacs who are still perusing his base.
Oh, that force is heading down over to that base in the center, though, and the Marines are going to go uncontested for the little bit. Starting to clean up a lot of the creep. There's just the Lings here. Now the Banelings have arrived. The Hatchery's already at half hit points. Nice split there from MarineLord. Doesn't take too much damage on those Banelings. And that was a good chunk of them. There's 16 left now, 30 as a bunch complete, but the hatchery goes down, and the drop in the main base is still making the magic happen.
It sucks because he can't use all of his units to try and fight right now. He has left a lot in the main and the 3rd to deal with the double medevac, or the formerly triple medevac harass that MarineLord was bringing to him. Because of that, he loses the original 4th, so now he's got a new 4th. He's going to take a 5th.
Ooh. So for a really long time, Reynor had an upgraded advantage with +2 armor, and then 2-2 finished. MarineLord caught back up, and now finally +2 melee finishes up here for Reynor, and he's also getting up the Ultralisk Cavern behind this. So this is kind of his next step. The Ultras, they can be a little bit tough, especially on a map like this, I think, to use effectively, but Reynor has definitely shown some competence with them in the past.
So he's going to try and get a jump on top of this army on the creep spread here, but because it hasn't been a parade push style, that Zergling counterattack gets completely cleaned up. This actually goes back to what I was saying earlier. I like this. I really like this. The adjustments that the players make to deal with the run buys have huge impacts on the successfulness of their strategies. And yeah, those Ultras are going to have a really hard time making things work with all the siege tanks staggered back behind those mineral patches too.
All right. The one of those medevacs from the earlier drop finally rejoins with the main force, and this hatchery is going to be abandoned.
He's just out of stuff. Like he's waiting for 4 Ultras to finish that basically need to win him the game, but he doesn't have an upgrade lead. So, and since Chitinous won't be ready when the Ultras are done, these Ultras are going to die really fast. The Marines.
Well, looks like that Ultra is staying alive for a little bit, but
I love the parasitic bomb on the medevacs though.
Yeah.
Forcing that extra little bit of micro. Good abduct, actually, on the tanks. Okay, things turning around a little bit here for Reynor. Good grab. He's still way down in supply. He lost a lot of drones, but
he's holding on.
Staying alive.
He's holding on, but 3-3 just finished up now, so these Ultras are going to disappear even faster now to those Marines.
Off creep, no chitinous. +3 is not done yet. Yeah, this is a huge upgrade advantage. And MarineLord, Reynor did a really good job pushing him back there, but I still don't see...
Nice snipe on the tank.
I don't see the window yet for him to clear this out and reestablish himself. I think MarineLord, now you maybe parade push across the map, just keep rallying.
Oh, yeah.
GG picks up a map, and key thing to focus on there, if you're doing any replay analysis, you want to break this down, say, well, how did MarineLord take a map off Reynor? The start of the game ended with him having, I would say, like it's a decent advantage because his 3rd command center was really early, and the counterattack, while Reynor ended up ahead about 12 or 14 workers, but he was only on 2 bases, and MarineLord didn't immediately take his 3rd either, but the impact of being able to build those 3 SCVs at a time was really nice for him. But the biggest thing in the mid game that we saw was he did waves. He moved out in waves. He rallied tanks and Marines to the front of his natural or his 3rd, and yes, it's the reason why his pushes weren't as effective, but he didn't lose all of his workers to run buys.
Yeah.
So, or lose random tanks or Marines that were out on the field. So really liked his way of doing the waves. I really like the way that he just was very set against the run buys, because those are going to do more damage to him than not having enough units out on the field to make those attacks work. So really good job also microing those medevacs during that entire push on the top side base. He had a really good setup. And we had like multiple Ravagers and Banelings on patrol in the main and in the 3rd base. And you want to dive on top of the army outside your 4th when 40 supply is chilling back home? Good luck.
Yeah, that definitely really complicated things there for Reynor. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this next map is going to go, because we talk about Thunderbird. It is a unique map. It is one of those maps where you do have those kind of easy 3 bases, and you really don't have to worry as much with your 3rd base about the big Ling run buys and all that stuff. So moving on to King's Cove, this is one of the maps I would say, and maybe you'll agree with me on this, is that even though there are 2 different entryways between your natural and your 3rd base, it still can be one of the easier maps to still take that 3rd base. It's on the high ground and everything else.
King's Cove is an amazing defensive map. So
Is this where MarineLord starts to mount the comeback here, you think?
He has gotten zero luck with any of his builds at the start of the game outside of the proxy 3 racks. And for that reason, I cannot answer that he's gaining momentum because I feel like he needs to proxy racks again. I think he needs to do that same build and not be seen and force a similar situation. Because, like I said, the proxy racks did not kill Reynor, and Reynor was able to do a lot of damage in his counterattack, but that build worked for him because he delayed the third. That's the end result of that build, was that the third base was really, really, really delayed versus the third orbital command. So Reynor just didn't have as many units as he probably would have liked to normally have in that situation. But everything else ended up looking like a normal TVZ game, except the Terran just had a few more units because of the aforementioned much faster third command center.
Yep, all right. Well, here is King's Cove. In case you forgot the layout of it, here is, of course, that natural.
It's beautiful.
Overlord goes down. And then you can see there's that one ramp over here that's just at the outside the natural. That's all good and normal. You see that other little pathway. It heads over to that third base, which is, again, also on that high ground. So the idea is you can wall off both sides as a Terran player. Really makes the run-bys a lot harder, and then you just have to worry about one choke point for all of your units to go out of, then rally out from the main base, and makes it a lot harder for Reynor to get run-bys done. But Reynor's also, I think one thing he is good at is if there are even 2 openings, even if you fully wall off both sides, he's still pretty good about getting like the banelings to roll in and bust down the wall and then get the lings in, run them around.
And that was the biggest problem, was also like that map is very hard to counter on. You only have one direction you can attack into the Terran because of where those mineral patches are by the third. So this map will just naturally give him more options, since the rally path is not straight out of that path either. Like, he'll be able to go for the natural if he wants, or the third base, and then that fourth will, of course, add additional points. So
this is a silly meme. So I think in the first game, to break down the chat meta here of why he's saying Yuna, which is Cyril, by the way, in case you don't know, GLHF Clem, who is actually not, I don't think he's actually saying the player name Clem. I think he's talking about Denver? No, something like that. Anyways, the first game, I think that Reynor said GLHF like Mark, like you thermal. So this is just the meme.
No, he said Gabe. He said GLHF Gabe.
Oh, did he say Gabe? Yeah. Okay.
They were talking about how he's not as good as Gabe or something in the lobby because of all the people saying Hero Marine.
Yeah.
Hero Marine, MarineLord, those two names just beg
Marine
to be confused.
King. Yeah, there's a lot of Marine X blah.
Hero Marine King Lord.
Hero Marine King Lord. That'd be like one of the character titles in SC2VN or something.
Yeah.
Why don't you ever see, like, you see Terran players naming themselves after, like, Marine and stuff? Outside of Probe, are there many Protoss players that even, like, or Zerg players that name themselves after units in the game? Or even have a unit name in their username?
I think it's probably because, you know, we as human beings just identify with humans more. So it just ends up being like people would rather name themselves after units in the game because they can kind of see themselves like that.
That's fair. I don't know.
But no, I mean the Hero Archon, right? Like,
yeah.
But maybe someone just has a hard time personally identifying as a giant ball of death that expires after a minute.
You'd have a lot of self-confidence to identify that.
Well, lore-wise, they literally just what happened in the Legacy of the Void cutscene is what's supposed to happen to every Archon.
Well, aren't all of our lives temporary, Nate?
It's too early. It's still too early. We've been live.
Too early for
philosophical
talk.
4 hours, and it's only 9 in the morning. Okay.
Maybe after breakfast.
Maybe after breakfast.
Liberator opening, as well as those Hellions coming on out, is going to be the choice here for MarineLord. This is pretty much what we were waiting on. There's a light Reaper harassment. This time he doesn't get any damage done.
You know what? I'll go back to it. Actually, that's how I want to go. I want to go out like an Archon. I want to implode into a miniature whatever Void thing and take half of a giant Ultralisk's body with me to kill it. That would be awesome.
Is it in the lore? Is it an intentional, like, I choose that this is the moment this is going to happen, or does it just happen no matter what?
Well, the whole point of the Archon is that it's this giant, powerful thing, but it's a last resort ability. That's why it's so strong. It's like it's basically like the Templar realize that they can't do anything, so they join forces and they burn out all their quote-unquote mana into this giant force that ends, because otherwise it would be like really overpowered, I think, in the actual world of StarCraft if Archons just lasted forever.
What if it was based on how much mana the High Templars actually had, though?
That would be dumb, because people only morph Archons usually when the High Templar are out of it, but...
Then make it a much more
just imagine
choice.
You like Archon drop and like it's like, yes, you have 45 seconds to do your attack and then they just die.
Yeah.
I like the Liberator though, and this this Hellion Harass was a really nice poke. Reynor very exposed all of a sudden to this.
He does have those queens that made their way over to this top right-hand base. He's got 20 lings still around. Yeah.
So to give you guys some actual analysis, oh, beautiful usage
of
this.
Boy.
This is Terran Dreams. So, MarineLord's build in this game, he went gas before barracks, which generally speaking isn't huge, but if you go for that really quick factory with the Reaper, you can get it a lot faster than normal. The risk that you run is you usually don't have Marines early on to deal with like a really fast pool that sideswipes you, because you get the reactor immediately after, but also that means the starport's faster. So with this poking and prodding that MarineLord has been able to do, he's also been able to get out those Liberators a bit more quickly, and of course they don't rely on upgrades like the Banshees do to be useful, so it just comes up and sieges on the base, gets some good pressure, and I like this. This is a good bit of momentum. If we talk about differences between this setup and the last game, well, we've got our third orbital command center coming in, double engineering base starting, upgrade timing looks good. I like it.
Nicely done so far by MarineLord. Definitely a solid opening, and the Hellions look like they're finally going to start getting caught over here by these Lings, which will finally open up the map a little bit for Reynor. He doesn't have to worry about those constantly running around, but he still has to worry about that Liberator coming back in a bit later.
But this situation is very different from the last game. The third orbital has just finished, and he's going to float it over immediately. But if we were to compare positions to Thunderbird, third hatchery was only like just finishing by the time that third orbital had already punched out quite a few SCVs. So the worker count difference isn't going to be as nice for MarineLord. Having 3 orbitals, of course, is all any Terran player needs to win a game of StarCraft, but he's not in as advantageous of a position as the last map, to the point where we're going to see him making these giant push-outs that can't be stopped. Also, of course, because counterattacks are going to be easier on King's Cove.
All right, Plus One Carapace is now finishing up there for Reynor, and you're talking about those counterattacks. Well, Reynor is very ready with those Lings, just waiting for the opportunity, but doesn't seem like MarineLord's going to give him too many. He's actually looking for those Lings now with those Marines, even goes for a big stim up to try and snipe a couple of them off. Liberator is coming back in, though.
This Liberator harass, this could be big. If he can do anything to distract his opponent, like move these Marines out, do a little bit of poking and prodding, and get that Liberator siege like right as this starts to hit, could do devastating damage, but now Reynor's too good at the video game. Real quick to the draw and pulling the drones back. And there's a good amount of Ling Bane here to deal with this, so getting some creep tumors would be nice. Focuses down 1 Baneling. I love it. I love it.
Oh, barely misses a snipe off on the last active creep tumor there, so that's going to keep the creep in place for a little bit longer while the new creep tumors are set up. Liberator moving around, hasn't taken any damage just yet. It takes like 1 shot from the Queen. Gets out and just rallies straight back in. Oh, what a bold play.
Pretty quick second factory, relatively, for MarineLord. I think this is one of the nice things he did in the last game too, being able to build 2 tanks at a time. You don't see it a ton, and it's not that it helps with your first or second attack, but really if you lose all your tanks, being able to get back up to that 4 number is really nice. Good denial on the 5th base too.
Yeah, good movement. I don't think Reynor saw those Marines making their way in at all.
In the medevacs. He did. He's done a really good job with unit retention, I think, right? Those medevacs in the last game was another huge part that we were talking about.
I mean, actually, if you just look at units lost, he's only lost 14 units so far. It's like 2 of the Liberators, 5 Marines, 6 Hellions, and he's done a good amount of damage with them.
But Reynor's still in a much better spot than he was on Thunderbird. He's got 100 Lings, so he can just run them all. He can run them all over the place. He can do a lot more to deal with these big drops. he wasn't forced into that early Roach Horn, so we're not even seeing Ravagers in this game. Like, there's no Roaches, there's no Ravagers. That wasn't his game plan. So now he's going to be able to move into Hydralisks, and he can just kind of do his build a lot more crisply, a lot more effectively. And this is going to be the game where MarineLord has to put his big boy pants on and prove he can win the straight up head-to-head, because he is not starting this game with a huge lead like the last one against Reynor.
Yeah, he's starting to not only continue these drops, but actually starting to move out on the bottom side of the map.
This Hydra Den, if he could snipe, it would be sick.
Well, there's only like a couple of Lings flooding on forward. Finally, the rest of them all come, but guess what? That does open up the pathway a bit on the south side of the map, so a lot of the creeps started getting cleaned up. Banelings come rolling on in, gonna force the lift up here. You don't get out of there. But +2 Carapace finished up, and we're just waiting on MarineLord to finish up his own 2-2 before he probably starts thinking, should I unsiege my tanks? Do I want to go for the big push, not just these Marine medevac drops? Oh, that Baneling connection. Good split to make up for it at the end. Gets a lot of Banelings traded there. That's not bad. Forcing the Zerg player to remake those. There's only 7 Banelings left on the map now. There are basically all 7 of them.
And he's just using the mass link to hold everything away. Look at that. Hive's done. Adrenal Glands immediately starts up. +3. Upgrades are good for MarineLord, though. I mean, he got his 2-2 at a good timing, and he immediately started his 3-3 as well, so he will not be behind in upgrades at any point in this game, which is great.
Well, 4th and 5th base being established here for MarineLord on the low ground. This is where things get more tricky on the defense, because you're not just defending 2 high ground positions, you're actually starting to defend the low ground itself, which becomes a lot more wide open and way more opportunities, not just for run-by attempts, but massive concaves coming in from multiple sides. Big flanks available for Reynor.
Yeah, with this many Lings, right, there's just so much opportunity. And MarineLord, he's already thought about how hard it's going to be to kill Reynor. So we've got Ghost Academy, Fusion Core, extra star ports, personal cloaking. I like all of it. I like seeing all of it. We're going to go into Ghost Liberator, and that is definitely MarineLord's best chance, I think. I feel like it's going to be really hard to push in with just Marines. But at the same time, I also like that he's not moving out his tanks.
Ooh.
I think it's a really good call to not move the tanks out, because losing those opens you to counterattacks. But if you leave your power units behind, then the Marines, which are much more expendable, you go out, trade with those, do what you can, deny, create, pick off bases. And how are you going to counterattack a Terran player who left all their tanks at home, Fear Dragon? You don't. That's the answer.
Yeah. That is a very, very solid defensive setup there. And MarineLord just going to continue poking away at the creep, and like you said, getting ready for that long-term game.
Not enough Banelings here, by the way, so he realizes, he's like, I'll A-move you, yeah, let's go. Clears out a good bit there.
Yeah.
And he's really pushing the creep spread back, which is just nice.
Drop headed back into the 3rd base, also on the top middle side. It looks like it gets cleaned up by the Banelings.
But he sees the Greater Spire.
Yep.
So getting that vision is really nice, too. Doesn't matter, because he's already transitioning into the army that he needs to deal with it. It's going to pull the Marines back. And he's going to kill a lot of Zerglings here if Reynor keeps pushing there.
Yeah.
There's too many siege tanks to attack into this ground army. He needs Broodlords and Vipers to do it.
Dropping the main base, actually getting a couple of drones as well. I mean, Reynor has 85 drones. 3-5 drones, not a big deal for Reynor to lose right now. He's going to just remake those really quickly, start adding on some of those Corruptors, get up some of those Vipers, and gearing up for his own end game here. Do you want to see the nukes? Because I know we had some good old Vindicta memes on the nukes for TVZ.
If you're maxed out and you have all the upgrades and you've got a good amount of income, then I think some nukes are good. I don't think you should force it.
Yeah.
Especially pre-max, but...
Ooh. Got to kill him on those command centers. Not a cancel, but we're at the point where both these players are going to start building up their banks now. It's not the end of the world to lose a building command center or something like that.
Yeah. He's going to add a couple extra Ghost Academies. Like I said, as long as he's making sure to, you know, cross his T's and dot his lowercase J's, should be good.
Took me a second. I used that one. Lowercase J's. All right, we're starting to see, I mean, I have to say, MarineLord's been doing a decent job of pushing back a lot of the creep. Like, wherever there is creep, it really is just kind of the small line. But hey, this counterattack does catch one of the siege tanks, knocks down the depots. Liberators clean up a lot, but few units do manage to sneak on in.
All it takes is a few. Like, you get a good couple of these SCVs. MarineLord has a lot of workers, by the way. Like, loses 5 there, but he's at 69 SCVs, which is a perfect number to have. He doesn't need any more than that to mine all of his bases, especially since he's going to start building up the orbital command count. He has 6 orbitals, so he could probably go below. He could drop some SCVs. He could go down to like 42. I think would be a solid number. With 6 orbital commands, the income largely becomes gas-based.
Oh boy. His ghost count has actually gotten a little bit crazy. He's been making 3 at a time. He's already going up to around 14, 15.
What's the most we've seen in WCS this season ghosts in one game? It was that Vindicta game. He got 30, or was it 40? Did he get 40 ghosts? He got really high. I think it was in the 30s. I think it was in the like high 20s, low 30s, something around there. It was pretty high though. I don't hate this anymore, by the way. Losing the siege tanks is great. The dead supply at this point. Siege tanks are pretty much only going to hurt you. If you're worried about the banelings on your ghosts, the liberators and planetary fortresses will not hurt your own units.
Nice attempt there from MarineLord. He uses the nuke to try and catch the army as it's getting in position to deal with the Liberator. So he's trying to kind of use the Liberator as a bait and then use the nuke as the big sucker punch.
Catch.
Yeah. Neural Parasite on the way, I guess, for the potential battle cruisers.
Yeah, I mean...
Or actually, you can... It's one of those things you don't see very often, right? But the Neural Parasite ghosts and then EMP the rest of the ghosts.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's one thing. I don't think Neural Parasite is bad to get. It's one of those upgrades for... Because Infestors are so good in the end game, having them have all their abilities available, I think, just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because Infestor abilities don't really work that well in burst. Like, you can throw down 50 infested Terrans at once, but then if that wave does nothing, you lose the game. So, you know, smart Zergs, like we've already seen today out of a laser.
A laser and Lambo, yeah.
Yeah, like throwing down a couple of infested Terrans at a time to like push carriers back and
stuff.
Oh,
yeah.
You never see them. You never see them throw all of the infested Terrans out at once. Same thing with Fungal because it doesn't stack, right? So some of them will always have energy, and that makes Neural Parasite just very useful to have because 1 or 2 of them may be all you need.
You know, I'm actually still waiting. I want to see if you don't have an opportunity to EMP the rest of the ghosts. You Neural Parasite the ghosts, EMP the medevacs. Because I feel like a lot of the time, like it's easy to just, you look at the fights and you're like, yeah, this fight is going great. And you're like, oh, actually all the medevacs are out of energy. And all the army has just been stimmed like 2-3 times now.
Yeah.
That was very close.
Gets these Hydras, by the way. All the Hydralists went to the northeast. And Reynor says, well, I just want more Infestors and Corruptors, so that's fine. We Gucci.
Yeah, going up
Get some creep between these bases. Damn, yeah, that's been a pain, huh?
It's been,
his creep spread has been terrible this game. And not that he's made mistakes, but MarineLord has really been on top of cleaning it up.
Yeah, absolutely. He's done a fantastic job of
By the way,
back.
Shout out to MarineLord for following the end game rule book. This base will probably get knocked down. Well, the ghosts are coming in. He's got their fair. I think he might still get it. Yeah, still gets it. That many banelings.
That burst DPS.
Even if you kill the banelings, that's literally how they work. They still blow up when they die. So, but he's got plenty of command centers to just immediately move another one there or build it. 5 nukes being built at a time.
Yeah.
But anyway, finish my last thought. The end game rule book. He got his building armor and his high-sec auto tracking. So
that's good.
Kudos, Marine.
What an interesting drop. It's so Marauder heavy, which I mean is great for a
he's getting rid of it. He's just getting rid of the supply.
Yeah, it's so funny because it also is so great for sending
up that.
He gets the Hydrodon.
He gets the Hydrodon out of it? Yeah. That's really
and also has some, on top of that, force in the center. He's got the tanks in the top right.
Dude, this looks really good out of MarineLord.
Oh, that's going to get a lot of creep tumors there.
Reynor's army is still good enough to wipe him if he makes a mistake, but MarineLord has carved out a really good path for himself.
There's still that one Marauder in the main. Oh my god, it almost won.
2 units that can't kill each other.
Wow. Almost won that fight. That would have been amazing.
I don't really hurt you, and you don't really hurt me, but let's stand here and beat each other to death for 5 years.
MarineLord still wants a little bit more time before a big fight happens, because he, oh, God, okay, the Ghost not paying attention quite in time. Could have gotten a big EMP on those infestors, but yeah, MarineLord still wants a little bit more time to replenish the supply. He's actually replenishing it with more Marauders, though.
Interesting call. Maybe he's scared of Ultras? I don't know. He's building Vikings, which makes me nervous.
I guess, actually, tell me if I'm totally off base on this, but I mean, Marauders also will handle like a fungal growth or something a lot better, right? Because they have more
can.
HP.
I mean, I think Marauders to suicide into the Banelings and the Infestors are not a bad idea. Because Marauders, if they can get in shooting range of the Infestor, they will obliterate them. So I don't mind that at all. I actually don't mind the idea of just having the Marauders up front.
Reynor doesn't see the second nuke or the third.
Just
nuke?
for the Banelings, even.
Yeah. Okay, last second pull away. Still loses some drones, and well, that nuke won't finish. That hatchery is rare. On this last
yeah. I feel loath to say that there's like nuke spam that's cost effective, but I don't think that was bad.
No.
He got a lot of work on the hatch, almost killed it, but also killed a lot of drones. It was very distracting. But here we go,
Ooh.
Big attack! Wow, beautiful EMPs. If enough infested Terrans are able to finish, though, they should be able to rip through the Liberators. There's still
they're
a bunch
all
of,
gone.
I was gonna say there's too many Liberators, so
yeah,
that's really rough. And the Vikings can actually get the job done with the ghosts underneath them. But oh wait, I say that there's only one ghost left. So the most expensive part of MarineLord's army was killed by that attack.
Wow. And this drop, I mean, the drop on the left-hand side potentially going to snipe out that Baneling as he's sniping off bases over here, killing off some drones for now. Not really, okay, now he's focus firing down and stims up on that Baneling nest. No more Banelings going to be made. Hive also over here. If he doesn't get time to react to that eventually, that's going to be a problem. This force on the top third base is also getting in a really, really abusive choke point.
Those Marauders that we were curious about, we can see, I mean, that just their tankiness against those Lings getting into the choke point, really nice. They complement the Marines so very well, although no surprise to anybody to hear that, of course, but he could get the Greater Spire. He will not.
Gets it low, though. That's going to be a concern. Especially since, I mean, so much of the tech is just getting sniped off.
Most important thing that happened is at the end of the day, MarineLord has all of his bases still. So he lost every ghost that he had. He lost most of his Liberators, and he lost some Vikings, and he's building even more Vikings, which, I'll just say it again, it's terrifying. But because he has all those bases and all those orbitals, you call down 20 mules, and all you need to do, that counterattack, he has 11 mules mining right now. That counterattack bought him a ton of time. So he's back up to 8 ghosts. Which is plenty, and he's getting more bio out, pumping it out. Parasitic bombs are going to come down to try and get rid of the Vikings.
And there's no more Viper energy, really. So the Vikings now gonna have to worry about the parasitic bombs. It's just the Corruptors here.
Yeah, Corruptors are so tanky, though.
Yeah.
Like, the Vikings maybe will kill them with the Liberators support.
Liberators, the Unsiege and that splash damage.
Yeah, the problem here is even in this situation where you can kill, where like the Vikings are fighting the Corruptors, then the Broodlords are still able to do so much damage in the meantime. Like that air army is so big, and now needs to be really careful because he's 1 or 2 fungals away from taking a beating.
Yeah, there's 1 or 2 of those fungals that you were talking about. The Corruptor's also going to come in to finish the job. He gets maybe a few more of the Broodlords, but MarineLord still is doing so much damage to these small little Marine run-bys.
Yeah, we never see people do this, but moving those Bile Forces out like Zerglings rather than using the Medivacs and making them into big investments. Like, throwing a couple Marines at your opponent like that, maybe it does something, maybe it doesn't, but it's actually very cheap to do if you have a bunch of units and you're not worried about your production cycle.
And Reynor is broke now. He's down to 24 workers and only has 75 minerals in the bank. He is working on scraps right now, and those scraps, there are big scraps. But,
I think MarineLord wins this game. I don't see how Reynor attacks anymore.
He'd have to kill
all he has
so much in such a short period
all
of time.
Reynor has in terms of army, realistically, is Broodlords. And Broodlords are not enough. Yeah, he has to get through so many planetaries. He's got bases on both corners of the map.
The only conceivable way I see him making this work is he takes out the army and then gets in on top of the production, and MarineLord does not immediately just start rebuilding his production on the far left or something.
Yep.
That's like the one way, but MarineLord's not even going to give him that chance. Goes for a drop. Will snipe off the hive. There is still an infestation pit, but that means no Vipers.
Yeah, need the Vipers. So, yeah, no, I think MarineLord's done it. This is going to be a slow burn for Reynor because he is so good that in his brain he must be thinking like, of course there's a way I can come back into this.
It's been, I mean, it has
if he
been
could,
a scrappy
if
game.
Reynor could see the screen that we're all looking at right now,
yeah.
he would probably leave the game.
That is highly likely.
He is super dead.
All right. Well, damn, MarineLord played a really solid game.
MarineLord played a freaking amazing game. So I'm just going to start talking about why MarineLord won this game now.
Okay.
He left his tanks at home, and I really like to see that. You know, he did a lot of big move outs with Marines and Marauders, but like those mass drops, he'd have like 7 or 8 medevacs and like 45 Marines. His control was really good, but he never limited himself, right? By having those tanks at home, every time Reynor tried to poke, every time Reynor tried to prod and harass, it got absolutely shreked. It's amazing that he can throw all this away, and it doesn't matter because he kills 2 Infestors that Reynor cannot replace. And the Broodlords are going to run up. There you go. So anyway, yeah, MarineLord tied 2-2. As I was saying, the tanks left at home are just really nice because A, you're not just defending against the counterattacks, but by not extending the tanks, you don't risk losing them. Yeah. And why does this matter? Well, the Zerg player has to get Broodlords if you're going to leave 8 tanks like that. You don't attack into it because there's A, Marines still are poking you. You're still dealing with run-bys on your own counterattacks, your own harass. So the tanks basically make it so that if you want to play out a later stage of this game, you either need to kill all the Marines in like 3 Baneling hits so that you can just mass lings through the 8 tanks, which is still a huge risk.
Yeah.
Or you need the Terran to move the tanks out so that they can die, and then you can say, well, now I just roll Banelings into your planetary and everything, but you're not getting a Hydraling Bane push on a planetary with 8 tanks around it. Also, the tanks on the left side had complete coverage of the west ramp by the 3rd. I checked. And the tank on the right side also had total coverage of the zone that would lead up the ramp into the natural, which he still busted open once because the Liberals weren't able to save. But, you know, that doesn't really matter. My point is that it wasn't...
Great coverage, yeah.
He had really good control over the zones outside of his base, and he never overextended. And a very well-timed transition into the Ghost Liberator, which is the ultimate Terran endgame army.
And he got up to that in a very safe way. Like you were talking about that transition point, that's one of those times where it's like, oh, okay, don't quite have too many ghosts, or you're still a little bit lower on the Liberator count, maybe you lose a lot of them. Like we see a lot of Terran players who do falter at that point, but he was able to get up to that like really critical number, which really helped out. And
the last thing I'm going to say is that his harass won him the game at the end.
Yes.
That between the nukes and running Marines and Marauders with no medevacs, it's a totally viable thing to do because the focus becomes so stretched out. Sending 10 or 15 Marines or Marauders around a corner where your main army isn't still requires a pretty dedicated assault from the Zerg. Reynor got an amazing wipe. He got through the majority of the Vikings, got through most of the Liberators, he killed every single ghost. There was barely anything on the map. He very temporarily had a supply lead when he cracked that northeast base with the Broodlords, but the reason why he wasn't able to capitalize on it was he had 36 drones. After everything, he had no economy, so there was no Ling Flood to come out behind it. There was no Corruptor Flood to come out behind it. There was nothing that he could do other than take his Infestors back to restore their energy and move his Broodlords back to try and save his base, which he failed to do, as we saw. Lost the Hive, lost the Hydra Den, and lost the game.
All right. Well, with all of that being said, game number 5, the decider match, is going to be moving to Kairos Junction. And we keep talking about the maps, the importance of, ever since map number 3, we had Thunderbird and, of course, King's Cove and everything.
This is the real test. This map right here will be the biggest test for MarineLord because this is, without a doubt, the best map in the last couple of games for all of those run-bys and counterattacks. This will be the one with the huge angle. No matter what third base you take, there's a huge number of angles to get attacked from. There's multiple ways to get up into that high ground area by the natural expansion. And while, yes, there are some good siege positions on this map for Terran, I'm going to be nervous, cautiously optimistic. And he's going to send out the proxy SCV. I like it.
Speaking of siege positions, it's going to be siege in a different sense.
Yeah, I like it, though. I like this a lot. The Overlord seems to be headed towards the spot where he wants to proxy, which Makes me like it a little less, but it's just a risk that you have to take, you know? You don't win big without playing the game, Fear Dragon.
Perfect Overlord scouting location. He's going to run right over this, and if he was really quick to react to that Overlord, I always like to say, you know, the barracks and the SCVs have smaller vision radius than the Overlords, so
yeah,
you can't hide that, but
yeah,
no,
he doesn't,
just reveals it.
Okay, there you go. Yeah.
Says, okay, I know that you're doing this, and you know that I know.
He pulled drones, by the way. Immediately.
Okay,
he doesn't even have a pool on the way yet. He just immediately pulled a ton of drones to come shut this down.
Well, he's about to get enough resources for the spawning pool. He's still not starting yet.
You get both of these SCVs.
He's making more drones.
Terran player smashes their keyboard in half.
Oh boy, that is.
And this turns into a very late command center first.
Reynor just gotta wait, yeah.
Or a 1-Rax expand. He could finish this. He doesn't. The drones don't have to let him, but he close. Okay, there we go. Well, this is still nice because of how late the pool is. So a Marine will still show up and like maybe poke the front. So the drones might have to come out and fight that, and at least one has to stay here to keep a bunker from starting. Yeah. Because the pool was really late. But
and for the non-Terran players out there, what Nate was talking about also, like finishing up the barracks is actually an economic thing also, because then you can start up your orbital command and everything. So finishing up that barracks wasn't just about, oh, I can get Marines out and stuff. It's I can get my orbital command.
And now he has his first mule come down, which is really nice. So the actual gets a drone kill there with the Marine. That's really big.
Oh, wow.
That's huge. At this stage of the game, you get this type of defense on this attack. This is really as much as you could ask for. So the pool being late suddenly is as important as we were kind of touching on. I think his second supply depot and his factory will probably wall the main off. These Marines should die. He should just run the link straight across the map. He's going to build the factory in his main base. Okay, he needs to start.
Well, the links aren't going to have link speed, so maybe they...
Oh, yeah, without speed, maybe he won't attack.
Yeah.
I think if his barracks sees that, though, you need a wall.
He's not starting his wall.
These Marines are going to have a hard time getting back into the main base.
Nate, that wall is not going to happen.
Maybe he just doesn't care. He's just pull SCVs.
He's like the Marines will wall.
Yeah.
Doesn't, yeah.
Well, since the Marines made it back, if he pulled SCVs with it, he would deal with the links without too much trouble. Yeah. But it is a precarious thing to do as a Terran, because if you mess up for 1 second and your Marines get surrounded, you can lose. Because I think that eight ling number is enough to do with the 3 Marines. Yeah. Since there was no 4th Marine, it's possible to take that down.
I was thinking the scarier thing even was just that if Reynor had actually made more lings or something, that could have just been
exactly. But you don't know if he's rallying or if he has speed.
But it was unlikely, and MarineLord takes a bit of a risk, gets away with it, and is going to be better off for it.
He sent the barracks straight home because of the way that this game started, right? And he wasn't able to take a second one that he would have maybe had if he didn't get scouted and use it to scout or block the 3rd. So if we talk about that Thunderbird scenario again, and look at that, he made a few more lings, and here you go, it gets awkward.
Yep. Gets up into the main base, is going to scout out the tech lab finishing next to the starport, but also mostly just trying to go after some of these Marines. Nothing I think he's seeing here is probably too surprising, although the reactor on the Hellions, that's usually a little bit further toward the front.
What you would want to scout, if it was one of those types of builds, you'd be like, well, okay, if you saw an armory, you're like, okay, well, nice, cool, I know he's hellbatting me, or a fusion core, but MarineLord would also probably deliberately delay any of that. I think, is he starting? Did he queue up a 3rd? No, okay, just Hellions, Banshees, and Depots.
Do you think would it be revealing or any kind of mind game that he saw the barracks land and not start a tech lab, and then after the lings went to the further south, starts the tech lab? Was that just, okay, I just want to make sure that these lings can't escape, or was that also like, you don't see the tech lab?
I don't know. There's a lot that the tech lab can really mean. Because we see it's for Banshees, but it could have been just for like quick stamp.
Oh no, actually, the one for the barracks, yeah, second.
Yeah, he gets him anyway, so.
Okay. Well, a couple of sport cars are already on the way, so it looks like Reynor is already anticipating the possibility of those Banshees hitting them in the near future, which he would be right about, since those lings already saw the tech lab on that starport getting swapped around. So Marine's going to start cleaning up some of these overlords. I think the Banshee's already, first Banshee's already making its way across the map, I think. Yeah, there it is. Ooh, nice timing on that drone. Doesn't lose anything so far there. Let's have some of the resources for the cancel on the Spore.
Oh, goodness. Nope. A couple of these Marines might get grabbed. Having 1 or 2 Marines is... I'll tell you what, man. Every single time that I think there's no more Overlords on my side of the map and, like, I get rid of the Marines or they get caught, even if I have Hellions and I deal with the Lings after, then you just... The Overlord flies in and you don't have any Marines at all. And you're just like, no. No.
Pulse and Carapace get started nice and early on. So Reynor's been doing a good job throughout this series, I think, of getting like the Carapace upgrades first, and then it kind of goes like a 2-1, 3-2, just one upgrade ahead on the Carapace while he also gets up the melee behind it. And he's actually going to be beating MarineLord a little bit to the punch as well, since his engineering base just finished up. And we'll see how quickly he starts up 1-1. Since he does have the resources for it, but he's definitely microing right now. There it is, 1-1 getting started.
Nice. Good upgrade timing. The Carapace upgrade is pretty far along already for Reynor, but I think that's not too much of a surprise. He's kind of been leaning on that with his melee upgrade being just a little bit later because he wants to make sure that he can survive if he gets attacked. Carapace, of course, very, very nice upgrade.
But this is that moment right here where the third base is getting set up on the low ground. This is when Reynor hits his stride with the Ling run-bys, because this is a very wide open base in a lot of ways. And it is pretty far away from your natural, or at least it feels that way. So this is where there's a lot of ground to cover for
And he just
MarineLord.
lost some of the Hellions, right? He's got 3 Hellions left. You need to be really, really careful. Yep, start the depots. You're gonna need a big old wall if you want to play ball versus Reynor.
Already getting the armory started up pretty quickly as well, so he is absolutely going to be on top of those 2-2 upgrades, or at least have the ability to start them up. Reynor's thinking about getting up the Hydra Den. He's, of course, getting up that +1 melee upgrade now, and Centrifugal Hook, so he's gearing up for the mid-game. Catches the remaining Hellions, that's nice. Doesn't have to worry about them anymore.
Yeah, he doesn't have Bane. So Bane Speed just now starts, +2 Carapace just now starts.
So last game, you were kind of complimenting MarineLord on just his unit retention. We'll see how good he is about that this game, since he started to make his poke outs once again.
I'm nervous. I'm a little bit more nervous. MarineLord has been... I mean, his setup is still good. The Banshees are doing what they can here. He's gotten a decent little bit of harass, but as long as he stays on top of the creep, I'll be happy. And actually, you know what? If he keeps his tanks at home, I'll be really happy this game, because it's going to be really hard for him to make any serious pushes. He should just try to keep harassing with the Marines like he did last map. Use the tanks to defend against run-bys, and try to get that 4th base up as soon as he can and make the switch into Liberator Ghost. His control with that endgame army was really good. Reynor really struggled there. If I were MarineLord watching that last map, try to force the same scenario again.
Yeah.
Keep moving out with the Marines. Don't stop attacking that way, but don't throw away your siege tanks and let Reynor kill you with run-bys. Yeah,
what was really cool about that last game was that the way MarineLord won it wasn't some weird gimmick or like, surprise, here's some tech. It was, no, this is just a really difficult style to keep up with, and the way he was using his Marines was really effective. That's not something that's just easy to solve going into the next game.
Yep. Gotta remember that when you want to play, if you turn the focus of your style into like a tech-based build where you become gas limited, the Marines become effectively like Zerglings, where you kind of want to throw them at your opponent to buy time, and if an opportunity opens itself up, then so be it. But if you make your entire build about the Marines, then every single one becomes so important in terms of like taking those fights and not losing anything and retaining them. But that's one of the reasons why I like to see the Ghost Liberator play, because it just gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of like dealing with end game tier units.
Yeah, it's a small thing right now, but I do just want to note that the medevac count, it's up to 6. That's not too bad, but these 2 medevacs sitting very low on hit points. There's Hydras over here, so there's a chance that some of these medevacs may end up dying soon.
And the Vipers will be able to abduct them as well soon.
I'm not worried yet, but it's something to keep an eye out on because I do feel like MarineLord throughout the series, he has been the guy who is never afraid to stim. He's so ready every single time to stim up a good chunk of his army. So just keep an eye on that medevac count and how many are ready to heal up these Marines.
This scares me a little bit. Okay, so we got the units moving out, trying to clear up some of the creep in the middle of the map. He's taking that forward base for his next one. Oh, actually, really good cleanup on the left side by MarineLord. He needs to secure this base. I was worried about the siege tanks because he did move, I think, almost all of them. Yeah,
he's that base is barren.
Spot.
Well, the siege tanks are actually just barely outside the range of that command center. It looks like Reynor didn't want to jump on it.
I want 2 tanks by his third base. I'm scared. I'm like, he cleaned up the left side, and that was important because I think that Reynor was considering going for an attack there. But oh, these tanks going to get caught sieging a little bit.
Okay, Banelings go off on them, but only 1 tank even gets softened up, and now it's a choke point.
This is good. The Hive has been done for a while now, but the Spire has only just begun. So we've got a decent clock before Broodlords come out, and Ghost Academy, I think, is ready. Okay, no, he hasn't started Ghost Academy yet, but his starports are almost done, and his Fusion Core is just about ready. So we can see that transition to Liberators, but it looks like Reynor wants to try and take a fight Blinding Clouds onto the Siege tanks.
Oh, he is going to be able to absolutely break through this kind of position here with those Blinding Clouds. Although the rest of the Marines start coming forward, and those reinforcements are going to be the thing that start to turn the tide of this battle. There's only one of those siege tanks really in range. It's not even sieged up anymore. It is going to try and siege up now, but it's starting to go down. The Planetary Fortress is going to start getting involved in the fight if he pushes too much further forward, but the Marines able to push this back for now and gets that run by through with the Marines.
Good counterattack. Those 2 medevacs are very low. If you want to leave the Marines to fight, go for it, but I would boost the medevacs out in advance. No, it doesn't. Okay, whatever. That's fine. It's going to kill a bunch of Hydras, gets rid of some of the Banelings. Good target fire down on the Hydralisks.
Very nice target fire there.
It looks to me like Reynor wants to end this with the next set of Blinding Clouds because he's building got a ton of Banelings, good amount of Lings, and the creep is still just outside the front of MarineLord's fort. So he cannot actually move out in any easy sort of capacity. The tanks are spread very well, but since there's nothing like missile turrets in front of the tanks, there's no Marines in front of the tanks, they're very easy targets for Abducted Blinding Cloud. The Vipers won't meet any resistance approaching them.
Yeah, Vipers just got to rebuild up some of that energy. The medevac count is looking healthy now, by the way, so I'm not too worried about those anymore. But we are going to start to see Reynor gearing up to a nearly maxed out supply once again and is getting ready to try and go in for a big attack once again.
Yeah, MarineLord hasn't really had the time to make that transition. He got everything, but no Liberator range.
Okay. Greater Spires.
No Ghosts. And this is going to be very tricky. Okay, Ghost Academy does now start. He needs to buy a lot more time. Denies that hatch, but it's going to be immediately restarted.
Oh, God. I mean, forget Liberator range. He hasn't started a Liberator.
Yeah. Some of the Hydralings going to poke here. Those siege tanks are very good at defending against him. He's building 2 tanks at a time. And it's a very delicate balance because the siege tanks are amazing versus this army until the very moment that Broodlords are out. As soon as Broodlords become a part of this game, it gets real tricky. But yeah, with 14 Banelings still alive, he's going to try and swarm this army. Those tanks are going to get killed. The Bane's in the back, so you cannot run away.
And that's a massive supply lead now for Reynor. The Ling flank there really catching MarineLord at a vulnerable spot. Now the Blinding Clouds come out of the 2 remaining tanks. The Lings clean up those tanks. The Banelings roll into the SCVs and the Planetary Fortress, which will, by the way, go down alongside MarineLord.
Reynor does it. MarineLord fighting valiantly. And one of our subplots for today's episode being that the underdogs against the Titans of Europe have performed pretty well. Drogo played very well against Cyril. MarineLord played very well against Reynor. It's so hard. I can see MarineLord wanted to make that transition, but Reynor really wanted to get up in his face about it and make those big attacks. So it's a very difficult balance trying to move that composition because that's the biggest weakness of Terran is the tech, right? Making those transitions is very slow. There's a lot of infrastructure required. You're not going to bank up larva, finish a Ghost Academy, and build like 30 ghosts instantly if you have the money. It's difficult. And just wasn't able to establish any of the sort of early lead that he had in the previous games that he won. His early game was really good in both games that he won in this series.
Yeah. All right, well, congratulations once again then to Reynor. He's going to be advancing on to the semifinals where he will face off versus Lambo. We got 4 Zergs in our semifinals. As we take a look, the next match is going to be Cyril versus, Cyril versus Lambo. It's a Laser versus Reynor. Of course.
Nerf the Warp Prism is the only way to fix this problem for your dragon.
Maybe we should reduce the range on Immortals so that way, you know, that wouldn't happen to MarineLord in that game, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, semifinals coming on up. It's Cyril versus Lambo. Lots of ZvT headed your way for the European Challenger playoffs.